In this video, this is the third part of the exploratory data analysis, in which I will be explaining how our data frame is visually displayed. There are different types of data visualization techniques we have seen earlier. Uh, those includes line charts, bar charts, histograms, scatter plots, and now we are going to see how these different visualization graphs are implemented in Python. And for that purpose, we are going to use a two different libraries from the Python that are supported by the Python. These libraries are typically used to display various kinds of graphs and charts. The first module that we are going to use is the Matplotlib, and the second Python module that we are going to use is the Seaborn. Seaborn implements most of the visualization graphs, and we are using both Matplotlib and Seaborn to implement various kinds of graphs in Python. So here I am importing those libraries first, and then we are going to see how individual graphs can be implemented. And like in our earlier sessions, we are going to use the Titanic dataset as an example. Now the first kind of graph that we want to implement is this graph is called as the bar graph, and as we have seen, the bar graphs are typically used for categorical or discrete types of variables, and we are using that. We are the count plot is a method from Seaborn module. We are using the count plot method to draw bar charts. Now see here, the Seaborn is imported as SNS, and that's why I have used SNS, and SNS dot count plot. Yes, 1 minute. SNS dot count plot. It takes two different types of argument. The x argument, on the x I am going to use the discrete variable or the categorical variable called survived, is one of the feature variable in the Titanic dataset, which tells the whether the passenger is survived or not. If the if the survived value is 0, it means that the passenger has not survived. Then the next argument that we need to pass is the dataset, and our dataset is loaded. We have loaded the dataset in the df. So let us see how the graph see here. Now it has, this is the graph, this is the bar chart showing that the values for the the count for the survived and the not survived. For not survived, it is approximately more than 500, and which has not survived are about 300. Now you can add one more argument to this, that is called as the hue. Using that, you can split this bar graph into different kinds of discrete values. Now suppose that I want to see how many males and females survived on that ship, then that's why I am using here the variable feature variable called 6. Now let us see how the graph it will be. See, this is the graph. Now the difference between this and the earlier one is like this. See here, if you see the without hue parameter, the graph will not show the splitting of the variable that is present on the x-axis. On the x-axis, we have the survived variable, and this value includes both male and the female. Now, when you use the third variable called hue, to which the value 6 is assigned, then it will split the survived passengers into two categories, male and the female. So this is the purpose of the bar graph. Bar graph is typically used for discrete variables or the categorical variables, and in Python using a Seaborn module, we can implement bar graphs with the help of count plot method. Now let us check the next point that we want to see is the how line charts are plotted using the Seaborn module. Now here there is one method in the Seaborn called line chart. One minute. SNS dot a line chart x equal to, here I am taking on age, and see, line chart is typically used for the numeric kind of variable. Here I am taking the two numeric variables called fair. Basically the line chart is used for the time series kinds of data, but for otherwise it can be used for non-numeric also. Not line chart, line plot. The method name is line plot, and there is third argument is there, a third parameter is there, to which we need to pass the data set. Our data set is loaded in the data frame df. See here, this is the line chart that we got. See, in the line chart, what happens is that the two adjacent points are connected through the lines. That's why it is called as the line chart. Line chart is basically used for the numeric kind of variables. Here the age and fair both are the numeric kind of variable. Now let us see the third kind of graph, that is scatter plot. Let us see how the scatter plot is plotted. Now we are using the scatter plot for plotting the scatter plot. We are using the Pandas library and not the Seaborn module. So in this case, so the from the we are calling the method on plot, then the scatter, and the scatter plot is typically called on two different variables, which may be anything discrete or non-discrete, also numeric or the non-numeric. See, this is the scatter plot. See, for both cases, like in the previous case, we have used the age and the fare on the x-axis, but the difference between the line chart and the scatter plot is that in the scatter plot, lines are not drawn. The intersection points are represented by the dots. And in Python, we can draw the scatter plot from the pandas library, and we can directly call the method scatter on our data frame. See here, we have called the method scatter on the our data frame df, and that's why we do not require to pass any data set. Whereas the line chart, to draw the line chart, we need to use the Seaborn library, line plot method, and we need to transfer dataset explicitly. So this is the difference between the line chart and the scatter plot in the in case of the in the context of Python. Now let us see another way of plotting the scatter plot, in which we are making use of one scatter variable and another discrete variable. See, the scatter plot can be used for both kinds of variables, discrete, numeric, and the non-numeric variables. Now let us check. I will use another variable. In the previous case, age and fare both are the numeric one. Now I will use age and whether how the scatter plot is typically used, how one variable relates with the another variable. Now let us see how the age is related with our survived variable. So see here, the plot is like this. Now the age, the survived variable takes only two values, either 0 or the 1. Now all the dots are at level either 0 or another one at the 1. Now if in our coming session we may be you are going to use the scatter plot to decide on which kinds of regression method you are going to use. Now suppose that this problem, if you get the graph like this, it means that this is the problem of logistic regression. If you get the this kind of graph, it means that this is a problem of linear regression. Now the scatter, that is the purpose of the scatter plot. Scatter plots are typically used to see the relationship between the one variable and the another variable. Now next kind of graph that we have seen is the histogram. Now let us see how the histograms are plotted in Python. Now for plotting the histogram, also we are going to use the pandas library. Now, if you the histograms are typically used for the numeric kinds of data. Now here we are going to take the age is our one numeric variable, and the histograms are is nothing but a kind of bar graph with numeric kinds of data. Bar graphs are used for categorical data, whereas the histograms are used for the numeric data. And histograms are typically used to see how the values are distributed. So it is the frequency diagram also. Now here we need to specify the size of the number of the bins that we are going to use. Here I am going to use the bins, 8 bins for the age. Now this is the histogram. Now see here, there are in the range between the 0 to 10, there are more than 50, approximately 60 passengers are there. In between 10 to 20, there are more than 100 passengers are there. 20 to 30, there are more than 2000 or 200 passengers are there. And the majority of the passengers are in the range between 20 to 40. So this is the purpose of plotting the uh, histogram. Histogram is a frequency diagram. Now you can use the beans size as much as you want. Suppose that if you have used the beans for 80, then for every age it will give the values. See, like this. So if you reduce the beans, the size of the beans, you will get a different histogram. See here. So that is the purpose of the histogram. Now the next kind of graph that is used is the pie chart. So plotting the pie chart is somewhat complex in Python, and we are going to use a code here. I will be explaining the code, this code. Let us see how the uh, pie charts are plotted. To plot the pie charts, we need to use the Matplot library, and let us see how the pie charts are plotted. Pie charts use the composition of a discrete variable, proportion wise the discrete composition of the discrete variable. This is the code for plotting the pie chart. Here we are going to use the Matplotlib, and now the variable for which I am going to draw the pie chart is the survived variable. Now survived takes the two values, either 0 and 1. 0 means not survived and 1 means survived. So it will count, first thing that you need to count how many number of values of zeros are present in the survived column and how many number of values for 1 are present in the survived column. So that is called as the sizes for each and every value of the categorical variable. See, the pie charts are typically calculated for the categorical variable. Now, this subplot is a method from the Matplot library, and it creates a layout for the graph which includes the x-axis, y-axis, and it returns the and the corresponding points, and it returns the a pair or a tuple which includes two things, figure and the axis in this case. Now on the axis we are going to call the method pi. So this pi method takes many arguments. The first argument that takes is the sizes. Sizes means the count for individual values for the categorical variable, and then the labels. I want to label the each here I am labeling 0 as not survived and 1 as the survived. Then auto percentage format, that is the formatting string. So how many number of significant digits you want to display and whether the pie chart is a shaded one or not. Once this method is executed, you need to display the graph on the screen by using the show method. So let us try to execute this code. See. Now, if you have seen here, here the labels I have labeled is the survived and the not survived. So those labels comes here. Now, auto percentage, this formatting means that there is only one most significant digit is present in the fractional part, that is 38.4 and the 61.6. So out of the total passengers, 61.6 percentage passengers are not survived out of that accident, and 38.4% of the people are survived. The purpose of the pie chart is show you the composition of the individual values in the total data size. So that is the purpose of the pie chart. So these are the different ways using which you can visualize a particular data set. The different data visualization diagrams that we have discussed in this sessions are bar chart, then scatter plot, then line chart, and the pie chart. So thank you.